Have you ever looked around and realized you're starting to think, speak, and even dream like the people you spend the most time with? It's subtle at first. Maybe the way you phrase a joke or how your energy shifts after a conversation. But then one day, you catch yourself reacting just like them, thinking like them, even fearing like them. It happened to me. I was sitting at a coffee shop, listening to my friend rant about how life just doesn't change. And before I knew it, I found myself nodding along, not because I agreed, but because I'd heard it so many times, it started to feel like truth. That moment shook me, because I remembered something Jim Rohn once said, a quote that echoed louder than all the noise around me. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Think about that. Not just their habits, their thoughts, their standards, their beliefs about what's possible in this world and in themselves. Who are your 5? Because today, we're not just going to explore this quote like it's a catchy idea. We're going to break it open, layer by layer, and uncover the deep psychology behind it. You'll see why this isn't just philosophy, it's science, it's social conditioning, it's invisible influence, and most importantly, it's one of the most powerful tools you have to redesign your life. So if you've ever wondered why growth feels so hard, why change never seems to stick, this might be the breakthrough you've been waiting for. Let's begin. Have you ever wanted to change your life, but felt like something invisible was holding you back? You read the books, you set the goals, you even feel the spark of motivation for a while. But then, slowly, something pulls you back to where you started. Not because you lack discipline, not because you lack vision, but because you're surrounded by people who live in the exact reality you're trying to grow out of. This is the quiet trap no one warns you about. You can have the best intentions, but if your environment doesn't support your evolution, it will sabotage it. Look around. Think about the 5 people you spend the most time with. Are they constantly complaining? Are they quick to quit when things get hard? Do they make excuses sound like wisdom? Are their dreams smaller than yours? Do they drain your energy or expand it? Because if so, it's only a matter of time before their habits become your habits. And not just habits, beliefs, emotions, reactions, patterns. Let me paint a picture. You wake up with a vision. Today I will do better. You listen to a podcast. You feel good. But the moment you sit at lunch with your coworker, she dumps her negativity about the boss, about life, about everything. Or your roommate jokes about how dreams are for kids and no one really makes it. Or your old friends laugh when you say you're building something. And now the fire you had this morning, it's a flicker, a shadow. These moments don't seem big, they feel like nothing. But over time, they reshape your mental environment. They reinforce a ceiling on your identity. There's a name for this in neuroscience, mirror neurons. Our brains are wired to reflect the emotional and behavioral patterns of those around us. It's how we connect, how we survive, how we belong. But it's also how we lose ourselves. Even the strongest mindset will bend if it's surrounded by constant emotional friction. Even the most disciplined heart can be worn down by daily doubt. Even the boldest dreamer will eventually whisper instead of roar if their dream is met with rolled eyes every day. This is what psychologists call emotional contagion. Emotions are contagious. Fear spreads. Cynicism spreads. So does laziness, procrastination, and regret. You don't need to hear negative things for years. Sometimes one conversation can plant a seed of doubt that takes root for a decade. It festers. It lingers. It becomes a lens. And here's the twist. It works both ways. Positivity spreads too. Energy spreads. Vision spreads. But only if you're close enough to catch it. And only if you stay close long enough for it to take root. Now ask yourself, who are your 5? Because whether you know it or not, they're shaping your future right now. Maybe your circle doesn't talk about books. Maybe they joke about growth. Maybe they think success is for someone else. Maybe they don't dream anymore. So when you do, they see it as a threat. Maybe every time you want to change, you feel the gravitational pull of familiar conversations. Familiar energy. Familiar limits. And you stay in your shell, not because it fits you, but because they're more comfortable when you stay small. That's why change feels so hard. Not because you're weak, but because you're outnumbered. There's a reason why gym culture is contagious, why book clubs make people read more, why successful people rarely hang around those who stay stagnant, why high-performing teams don't tolerate mediocrity. Because we don't just learn from content, we learn from context. Environment matters, and energy is the currency of growth. And when your environment is soaked in resistance, change becomes exhausting. And when you have to explain your dream every time, it eventually becomes easier to stop dreaming. Jim Rohn said it best: you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Not just in money, not just in habits, but in belief, in vocabulary, in dreams, in confidence, in risk tolerance, in willingness to evolve. So let's go deeper. Let's break down how your circle influences you, often without you noticing. 1. Language patterns. Words shape thought. If your group constantly uses phrases like, "I can't," "it's too late," or "that's just how it is," your brain starts to believe them as truths. Over time, your self-talk becomes their echo. 2. Attitudes toward growth. If your 5 view failure as the end rather than feedback, you'll start fearing risk. You'll overvalue safety and undervalue growth. You'll seek permission instead of progress. 3. Daily habits. People normalize what they repeatedly see. If your 5 binge Netflix every night, you're less likely to build something after work. If they never reflect, you'll stop journaling. If they never strive, you'll stop reaching. 4. Financial mindset. If your 5 mock investing, laugh at budgeting, or think rich people are evil, you'll internalize money as something distant, even dangerous, and worse, you'll sabotage your own financial potential without even knowing why. 5. Emotional regulation. If your 5 overreact, gossip, or carry bitterness, you'll find your nervous system mirroring their volatility. You'll get used to drama. You'll call chaos normal. It happens subtly, silently, until one day you realize you're living a life you never consciously chose. Now let me be clear, this isn't about judgment or blame, it's about awareness. Because once you can name the pattern, you can shift it. You don't need to cut people off completely, but you do need to curate your emotional proximity. Protect your mind like you protect your body. You wouldn't let someone cough negativity into your coffee every morning. Don't let them do it to your mindset. Spend time with people who speak life, not drain it. People who ask better questions, who dare to dream, who look at you and don't just see who you are, but who you could be. Who challenge your comfort, but protect your heart. Because here's the truth. If you keep walking with the same 5 people, where are they truly taking you? And more importantly, do you want to end up there? That's the moment change begins. Not in your schedule, not in your habits, but in your circle. Because when you elevate your environment, you elevate your life. And the greatest shift starts not with a resolution, but with a reevaluation of who gets your energy. Choose wisely. Your future depends on it. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to elevate effortlessly, while others, no matter how hard they try, stay stuck in the same loop of mediocrity? Jim Rohn, the master philosopher of personal development, once gave us a lens to understand this phenomenon, not through grand theories or complicated science, but with a simple, piercing observation. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. At first glance, it sounds like a motivational quote, something to post on a Monday. But when you dive deeper into psychology, into behavior, into life experience, you realize this is not a metaphor. This is reality, and it changes everything. Let's begin by breaking it down. What does average really mean here? It doesn't mean you become a carbon copy of your friends. It means that across 6 dimensions, your thoughts, your emotions, your habits, your income, your values, and your worldview, you unconsciously calibrate yourself to those around you. You reflect their highs, you mirror their lows, you internalize their limits, or rise with their standards. But it's deeper than mere imitation. It's a biological synchronization, an energetic harmonization that occurs just by being in their presence long enough. Let's start with thought. Jim believed that philosophy, how you think, is the foundation of everything. As you think, so you become. Now imagine spending every day with people who think the world is unfair, that success is a game for others, that dreaming big is delusion. Imagine how slowly, subtly, your vision gets trimmed. Like a tree pruned too often, not for health, but for control. How long before your ambition begins to feel like arrogance? How long before your vision begins to shrink, just to fit the room? This is the psychological mechanism of conformity. It's not about weakness. It's about wiring. We are social creatures, wired for safety, programmed to belong. So when the room around us sets a ceiling, we start crouching, not because we don't know how to stand tall, but because we're afraid of standing alone. And eventually, crouching becomes your posture, normal. Let's stretch that further. How often have we adjusted our tone, our words, even our dreams, just to make others more comfortable? The tragedy is not that we change. The tragedy is that we forget we ever wanted more. Next, emotions. You might think feelings are yours, private, independent. But neuroscience disagrees. There's a phenomenon called emotional synchronization. Your nervous system literally mirrors the energy of the people around you. Spend time with people who complain, who panic, who dwell in worst-case scenarios. Your baseline of anxiety will rise. Your patience will shrink. Your joy will evaporate. Not because you're fragile, but because you're human. But spend time with people who ground themselves, who breathe before reacting, who see opportunity instead of threat, and your nervous system begins to self-regulate, to expand. This is not magic. This is biology. Emotions are like tuning forks. You strike one, and the rest begin to hum the same. Let's talk about habits. Jim Rohn said, "Success is a few simple disciplines practiced every day." Now think about this. If your 5 closest people start every morning with intention, move their bodies, read, reflect, plan, you will begin to mirror their tempo. You will begin to raise your floor. But if they scroll endlessly, procrastinate, react instead of initiate, you'll sink into that rhythm too. A rhythm of reaction, a rhythm of delay. Humans are rhythm-driven creatures, and the people closest to you become your internal metronome. Their cadence becomes your standard. But there's more. Discipline is contagious, so is apathy. Choose carefully what you absorb. Then there's income. This is where people often push back. But I choose how much I earn. Yes, but you choose it inside an environment of norms. If your 5 closest people normalize struggle, paycheck to paycheck thinking, and scarcity, then thriving will feel foreign, even threatening. You will subconsciously sabotage the very things you desire just to stay in harmony with your tribe. Why? Because alignment often feels safer than authenticity. But if your circle talks about investment, leverage, giving value, multiple income streams, your internal thermometer begins to reset, not overnight, but steadily, daily, through repetition and proximity. Then we come to values. This one is subtle, but powerful. Your moral compass is not fixed, it's influenced. If the people around you cut corners, tolerate gossip, diminish others behind closed doors, you will either join them or silently erode inside, trying to resist. Your resistance drains you, but if your circle lives with integrity, lifts others in their absence, honors discipline, you will rise to that level, even when no one is watching. Because real values aren't taught, they're modeled. And finally, worldview. Do you see the world as a battlefield or a playground? As hostile or abundant? Your 5 reinforce the lens through which you interpret everything. They influence how you handle rejection, how you celebrate success, how you dream. If they believe in growth, so will you. If they believe they're stuck, you'll feel stuck too. Your lens becomes their lens, until you forget you ever saw anything else. Let me pause here. This is not a lecture, it's a mirror. I want you to think of your current 5. Who challenges you to grow? Who drains your energy? Who reflects your highest values? Who pulls you back into old patterns? Who speaks your future and who anchors your past? Who sees you as becoming and who needs you to stay the same? Because here's what Jim Rohn really meant. You are the average of 5 isn't just about company, it's about chemistry. Environment is not passive, it's formative. It doesn't just influence you, it writes your story. So if you want to raise your average, you must raise your standards. Start small. Start now. Choose one person who lives the future you envision. Spend more time with them, even if just virtually, through books, videos, or conversation. Let their presence recalibrate your path. Limit the time you spend with voices that shrink you, not out of judgment, but out of self-respect, out of preservation, out of alignment. Upgrade your circle, and you upgrade your subconscious. Because when your environment lifts you, you no longer have to carry growth alone. It becomes a shared current, a rising tide. You become the average of greatness. You become the echo of discipline. You become the embodiment of vision, and the life you desire becomes the life you normalize. all because you chose your 5 not by proximity, but by intention, by courage, by courage, by clarity. That is the wisdom of Jim Rohn, and that is where your transformation begins. So now you understand the philosophy. You've seen the patterns, you've felt the truth. You've recognized how deeply your environment shapes your thoughts, emotions, and direction. But information without action is just inspiration that fades like morning mist. Let's make this real. Let's bring the abstract down into your actual life. Let's plant seeds in the soil of daily decisions. Here are 3 simple actions you can take today to raise your average, shift your psychology, and transform your circle from unconscious influence into intentional elevation. These actions aren't grand, they're not time-consuming, but they're powerful, and when done consistently, they change everything. Your future is shaped more by your small, repeated steps than by your biggest breakthroughs. Step 1. Write down the names of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Sounds simple, but don't skip it. This exercise is the mirror of your current identity. It's a truth inventory. I mean literally, take out your phone or a notebook, write them down. Not who you wish you spent time with, not your childhood best friend who lives across the country, not your favorite author on YouTube, but the 5 human beings who occupy your physical or digital proximity the most. Think broadly. Text messages, meetings, lunch breaks, evenings, social media feeds, podcasts, Zoom calls, group chats, walks, random conversations at work. Who's speaking into your mind consistently? Who do you find yourself thinking about, even when they're not in the room? Who makes your voice rise or drop without saying a word? Now, next to each name, answer a few questions. Do I feel more energized or more drained after time with this person? Do they reflect who I want to become or who I used to be? Do they challenge me to grow or justify staying the same? Do I feel safe being my aspirational self around them? Would I trade mindsets with this person? Are they helping me remember who I could be or reinforcing who I've been? And don't judge them. This isn't about shame or blame. It's about awareness. Because what you're not aware of, you can't transform. The mind needs data before it can decide. This list is your data. It's your personal social ecosystem. It's your inner climate. Step 2, curate your proximity. Once you've done your audit, now comes the courage. You don't need to cut people out, but you do need to shift the ratios. Proximity is power, and you are not required to give equal time to everyone. Give more energy to those who elevate your future and create gentle boundaries with those who anchor your past. This might mean spending 10 fewer minutes scrolling negativity, saying no to one draining conversation this week, saying yes to a coffee with someone who inspires you, replacing one complaint with one compliment, starting a future list of people you admire and want to connect with, turning on Do Not Disturb for 30 minutes a day while you focus on growth, creating a group text with people who talk about ideas, not people. Small shifts, not dramatic, not aggressive, but intentional and repeated, because repetition creates rhythm, and rhythm becomes identity, because your environment doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to support the direction you're growing, and momentum loves support. Even one supportive conversation can ripple into your week. One uplifting message can reset your day. Be unapologetic about nurturing the relationships that nurture your evolution. Your peace is not negotiable. Your potential is not disposable. Step 3. Add one new voice to your life today. If you want to change your life, start by changing who you listen to. What you hear becomes what you think becomes what you believe becomes how you live. And the easiest way to do that? Add a mentor, a digital one, a consistent one that speaks to your soul and stretches your ceiling. Choose someone who reflects the values, mindset, and life you want to build. Subscribe to their podcast, follow their channel, read their book, sign up for their newsletter, replay their teachings, take notes, reflect, apply. Write quotes on sticky notes. Put reminders in your calendar. Make them part of your routine. Listen while you walk, while you cook, while you commute, while you're doing laundry. Let it become your mental soundtrack. Let their voice anchor your new normal. Make their voice familiar. Make their perspective available. Make their wisdom repeatable. Make their integrity aspirational. Let it interrupt your inner dialogue. Let it raise the bar for your language, your energy, your expectations. Because sometimes just hearing someone speak possibility is all it takes to remind you that change is not only real, it's required. And that you are not alone. That someone out there already lives the life you thought was impossible. And they're proof that the path is walkable, and the mountain is climbable, and the future is shapeable. Bonus practice, weekly identity calibration. Once a week, review your circle. Schedule it like a meeting with your future self. Put it in your journal. Reflect over coffee. Take inventory of your growth. Keep asking, who's helping me become? Who am I becoming more like? Who needs more space? Who deserves more energy? Who's part of the future I want to build? Where do I feel pulled forward? And where do I feel quietly held back? Transformation isn't always visible, but it is trackable, and it starts with who's standing beside you, even in silence. You'll be amazed how much transformation happens just by consistently asking better questions. Because remember, you are not fixed, you are fluid, you are adaptable, you are rewritable, and you are always becoming. So become on purpose, become through design, become with courage, curate your circle, audit your inputs, elevate your environment, expand your exposure. Protect your potential, and your identity will rise to match it, not someday, but starting today. One name, one shift, one new voice, one better question, one brave decision, one extraordinary life. That's where your next level begins. So here we are. You've walked through the psychology. You've felt the weight and the power of Jim Rohn's words. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. But this isn't just a quote anymore. It's not just a line you highlight in a book. Now it's a lens, a filter, a compass that points toward possibility, a call to look inward and look around. Because your circle is not neutral. It is either lifting you up or quietly pulling you back. It is either watering your potential or planting seeds of doubt. It is either challenging your patterns or reinforcing your comfort zones. And you are not stuck. You are not powerless. You are not finished. You are becoming. Every day, every thought, every conversation, every moment of silence where a decision lives. And here's the truth no one teaches in school. Your environment is part of your identity. You don't just adapt to who you are. You adapt to who you're around. You mirror what's consistent. You become what's near. That's why this moment matters. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's decisive. Because it marks the point where you stop waiting and start. This is your chance to choose. Not just your goals, but your inputs. Not just your dreams, but your energy sources. Not just where you want to go, but who's walking beside you as you get there, and who's willing to walk with you, not just when it's easy, but when it counts. So let me ask you, as honestly as I can, who's in your 5? Who do you default to? Who do you rise around? Are they building your courage or feeding your comfort? Are they lighting your fire or dimming your light? Are they speaking to your future or anchoring your past? Are they reflecting your values or reshaping them unconsciously? Because the next level of your life will demand a next level of connection. The kind that holds you higher. The kind that sees you bigger. The kind that calls you out and calls you up. The kind that isn't afraid of your greatness. The kind that reminds you of your strength when you forget. No, you don't need to leave everyone behind, but you do need to be intentional about who you're leaning on, who you're listening to, who you're letting define what's normal. Because normal is not always healthy, and comfort is not always kind. So here's your invitation. Take 5 minutes. Look at your 5. Name them. Honor them. Evaluate them. Then write one sentence. Just one. Today, I choose to elevate my circle because. Finish it with honesty. Finish it with heart. Finish it with the version of you that you've been holding back. And then, say it out loud, not because anyone needs to hear it, but because you do. Because your subconscious listens when your voice leads. Because this isn't just about motivation. This is about alignment. This is about identity. This is about ownership. And when you take ownership of your circle, you take ownership of your story. And when you take ownership of your story, you stop waiting for permission to change. You stop explaining your hunger. You stop apologizing for your growth. You start becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts better conversations, stronger values, more meaningful relationships, and deeper peace. Because energy is magnetic. And when you start living with intention, intention comes back to find you. It finds you in new voices, in unexpected allies, in rooms you thought were too far away. So today, not tomorrow, not someday, not when life gets easier, but today, choose to raise your average, choose to change your climate, choose to replant your identity in richer soil. And as you do, watch how your thinking changes, watch how your language sharpens, watch how your circle expands, watch how your posture straightens, not just physically, but spiritually. Watch how you stop tolerating things that once seemed acceptable. Watch how you begin to speak and dream and walk as the version of you who used to feel far away but now feels like home. That future you, they're not waiting for better conditions. They're waiting for you to step, to commit, to rise. So take the step, even if it's small, even if it's quiet, even if it's just writing one name down. Elevate your 5 and your life will follow. That's not just theory. That's transformation in motion. The key to your next level isn't somewhere out there. It's closer than you think. It's in your choices. It's in your people. It's in your average. So raise it and rise with it.